Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Nomad Expert Podcast by Commute. Today, we've got Jeff and Marissa here, and we're going to talk about something that comes up a lot, actually, probably in the early days of digital nomad lifestyle for me and maybe for you too, Marissa, and stuff that we also hear from the audience. And that's, we're going to talk about 5 reasons people want to stop you from becoming a digital nomad, which sounds kind of counterintuitive because we talk about all the reasons you should become a digital nomad, but you wouldn't expect that you would get outside pressure from other people to prevent you from becoming a digital nomad. But you may have actually heard it, or you may not have even noticed it, but there are certain things that happen where you get pressures from people that actually just don't want you to do it. And a lot of times it's just misunderstandings about the lifestyle. So what we want to do is we put together a list of 5 things that happen the most in our view, and we want to talk about each one of those things. And I think what we're going to do is essentially just debunk each one of those and give you information as to why they're wrong, and maybe equip you with like a different way to approach those conversations that you might have with people. So yeah, before we jump into that, Marissa, what's going on?
I'm super excited for this episode because as you were talking, I had so many people in my life, and it's all people who really cared about me and, out of love said a lot of these things, trying to be like, what are you doing? Don't do it. Why are you doing this? And I'm so glad that I did. But I know before we start, so I am in the States at the moment still, heading to Mexico, I think in a week or 2, I can't even remember. And you, I know, back on the road for a little bit. I'm super excited. It's been a minute. And you are also in Mexico. So tell us where you are. And you've just kind of wrapped up your Eastern European stint. So yeah, fill us in a little bit.
Done. I just told everybody on our email newsletter. I don't know if it was last week or this week. My brain is kind of jello from the time warp travel. I don't know where I am, what I'm doing. I don't know. But yeah, I'm done with Eastern Europe. It's been, I think, like three months or so. And you ever to that point where you're in a certain location, it just doesn't feel right anymore, and you just need to change.
Any time in Europe, Jeff, for me. If I'm on the continent,
you meaning
wrong.
The second you land on the continent,
second
you
I
feel
land
like you're in
the
the wrong
Europe,
place.
I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah, I feel like I can kind of relate to you. Like it was starting to not feel homey. It wasn't feeling. It wasn't feeling very cozy. I mean, Eastern Europe is not known for being particularly cozy.
But some people
no
still
offense,
love it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked it for what it was, and now I'm done with it. Now I'm ready to. Now I'm back in Mexico City, and now that I think about it, I think this is actually the first time I've been back in Mexico since 2023, or at least Mexico City.
It is 2023.
I'm sorry, since. Yeah, there we go. There's the brain jello thing going on. You'll have to bear with me. This is part of the charm of our podcast. You don't know what you're going to get with this.
Life.
You're getting real nomad life. I've got weird jet lag going on. Falling asleep at 6 o'clock. No, it was since the pandemic. Really? That was the only. It was one of the.
I could have sworn you were back in Mexico City, no? Wow.
Yeah,
does Mexico City feel like home to you? Like, do you feel like you're somewhere back where, like, it's home? I feel like for you, you've got friends there. We've got some mutual friends there. But it's nice to go back, like, after traveling for so long. You were in a lot of new countries, places you hadn't been, places that were pushing your boundaries. And now it's like, you're still, you're not in the States, you're not home, but it's I love it as a traveler going back now. I never thought I would say these words. I feel like 3 years ago me needs to hear these words. But I now love going back to those places where even if they're, not your home, they're foreign, they're different, but it's like you know your neighborhoods, you know your grocery stores, you know some of the restaurants you like, maybe you have some friends, a gym, the habits, like it's nice to go back to those places. Yeah,
on top of that, this place just, the first time I even got here, just when I got off the plane, it felt like home. It felt like a past home that I've been to. And I've had a few instances of that happening in my life before where I just got there. I was like, oh, I've been here before. Like, I know this. This feels comfortable. Right. This feels like home. And I just landed here again. I was like, I wonder if I'll feel that again. And then got to the apartment. I was just like, the energy was there immediately. It was like a warm hug. And
I love that. Like, it's so funny though, Jeff. So you wrote in our email newsletter last week for the podcast, Mexico City. You were kind of like over Eastern Europe, and you were saying, but here's the 4 places, that you loved and felt home. And it was funny. So Mexico City was one of those for you. And as I was reading through your list, every one of them, I was like, this is not home to me. This is not home to me. This is not home to me. Like I got to Mexico City and it almost felt like New York a little bit to me. So it wasn't like it was unfamiliar, but I was like, I don't like it here. So Anyway, I love to share this because Jeff and I have totally opposite, travel styles and places that we like. But I think it's so important. We'll say this again and again on the podcast, and maybe this is your first episode listening, I don't know. But sometimes I always see threads on whether it's Facebook pages or blogs or whatever, where people are like, where should I go? Like, where will I like? And everybody's really different. So as a nomad, I think the beauty is you kind of get to jump around and try different places and learn what you like. So if you like Jeff's sort of travel style, maybe you will also love Mexico City. And if you're like me, when I'm in Mexico, I love the beachy places, or Playa del Carmen's one of my favorite, or we're different. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I loved that every place you loved, I was like, I don't want to be there ever. So I think it's funny.
Imagine if we had a podcast where we just agreed on all the locations.
That'd be
so
boring.
Yeah,
So boring.
that'd be terrible.
So boring. And Diego, I feel like he actually is a combination of both of us. He likes kind of similar places that we both like. So we're a good balance.
Yeah,
but
he's the Venn diagram in the middle with just about everything.
That's true. You and I just always butting heads about it, but
other sides.
It's so it's fun to me, and I think just a good sample, so you get a little bit of everything from different points of view. So with that, Jeff, should we jump into our topic today of reasons that your friends and family members might try to stop you from becoming a digital nomad before you even start, really, and what to do about it. So why don't you jump in with what's number one on your list?
I wasn't going to take these in any particular order, but just looking down the list, the first thing on the list
start with.
actually does make sense because it's the thing that pops up the most often whenever I have conversations with people from home. It's safety. There are family. It's always family. My family gets concerned because they're reading stuff in the news about somewhere. It could have been something that happened back when in the 90s that they're concerned about. They're just concerned that I'm going to go to a place that is dangerous. I'm going to get kidnapped. I'm going to get held for ransom. And I'm never going to come home. Everywhere I go, there is some sort of news article that they can point to and say, you're in danger. I was in Serbia, and they're like, oh, there's a war in Serbia. I'm like, yeah, 1992. Things are very, very different, And it's prevailing, and it really does come from people that don't travel too much and that aren't really familiar with these locations that you're going to, and they're just picking up stuff in the news. And a lot of the times, I think we need to emphasize this, is that it's wrong. A lot of what you see in the news is wrong, and it's not a good representation of what's actually happening on the ground. But yeah, like to get your take on this, because I imagine you got a very similar type of...
100%. I think, so I have all the same things you just said, plus as a female perspective, I think probably friends and family worry even more about me, just being, like you said, they worry about you getting kidnapped. They probably worry about someone else just as a female getting whatever might happen. But that is a big one. I definitely had, my parents always feel that way. My brother often says things. And I remember, less now. So I've been doing this for like eight years now, I would say. And it was really something that I would say, not that they did sort of try to, I think just didn't understand it. I think they know by now, not to hold me back and say no to anything. But it was definitely I could feel their fear. I could feel their concern. And I remember, for example, one of the first places I went long-term as a nomad was to Bali, which is, very safe in and of itself. And I think most people have the conception that it is safe. But my dad sent me an article. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave. There was an earthquake, a giant earthquake that pretty big that had happened a couple islands over, but it, affected it, and there was maybe one on the island. And my dad sent me an article. He always just sends me articles about all. I love you, Dad, if you're listening. Thank you for caring. But anyway, he often sends me of there was an earthquake here, there was this here, there's these scams here, there's these dangers here, there's kidnappings here, no matter where I go. And I'm like, of course you're gonna see articles. So I think it's exactly what you said, which is there are unsafe things in every country. And I always tell people, there's shootings down the street from where I live in a very safe neighborhood in the U.S. If I see articles about the U.S., I would never travel here. It seems very dangerous to me. But anyway, all of that said, I think the overall theme is there's always things you can find about countries. And I am lucky. My parents actually have traveled a decent amount. And if I'm ever going places where they've been before, or maybe they have friends that have been or spend a lot of time, I feel like they're okay, we feel comfortable. We know it. That's a good place. But when I'm going to the more obscure places, I remember Nigeria was a big one. one where they were like, please don't go, like, what are you doing? Or there was other locations as well where it's just like more unfamiliar. And I almost sometimes have sometimes I just won't tell them till after I go to places now. Like if I'm already gone, I'll go to the next place and be like, by the way, I'm here. So like no one will try to stop me along the way, or like it just can help with the fear. But it's very real. And again, it comes from a place of love usually. It's like, if they didn't care about you, they wouldn't say these things. But it is a big concern that people have. And there are some, quote, unsafe places that I've probably traveled to. And you just have to, we've talked about ways to be a smart traveler. That's a whole different episode. But yeah, it's something that people will try to do. And I would say you have to just kind of keep your mind about you and say, yes, there's news everywhere. You can find unsafe things, but like, I'm doing it, I'm going, and I will find ways to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, you just got to be smart. I mean, I lived in Oakland for like 5 years, and that was way more dangerous than anywhere I've traveled to. And like, you just use the mindset of you're in a big city, and especially when you're going somewhere new, just assume that you're in a dangerous city and then act accordingly. So don't walk around alone at night until you figure out, or maybe not at all, but at least until you figure out your surroundings. Don't walk around with your phone out looking lost. Just common sense stuff. We've done a whole podcast on that, so I won't get into all the details. But I mean, any city can be dangerous. And it's good to do your research beforehand. It's good to get a feel for it before you start getting comfortable walking around alone at night and that kind of thing. But for the most part, I'm going to say mostly debunked. Not fully debunked, because there is danger. For sure. Can't eliminate it. It's part of it. It's part of travel, but partially debunked. All right. Do you want to take on number 2?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I would say the next biggest one that I encountered was that people don't think that digital nomad life is sustainable for your career and finances, like that sort of trajectory that you are expected to uphold, I say in the States, but, likely elsewhere as well, which is typically you go to college, you get the corporate job, and then you just keep getting promoted and going up the ladder. And a lot of people, I know my parents were kind of concerned about this one as well when I wanted to travel, was like, you can't have a real career while you travel. You can't keep getting promoted. You can't save your money. You can't. So I would say the kind of career and finances and, continuing to make more and save more and just having a great career trajectory. It's a hard word to say. A lot of people, trajectory. I was like, I've never had trouble saying that till this moment. So anyway, I would say a lot of people had a fear or misunderstanding about that for me. And they were like, a lot of people just felt like I was quitting my life and quitting my job and quitting career and quitting my finances just to kind of like fuck around, and like travel the world for a little bit, which is like some people do. Some people do just like, quit and take a year off and backpack around. It wasn't what I was doing, but a lot of people just had this fear of like, why are you putting your career and finances on hold in order to travel? And so we've talked at length about this on the podcast, of how about you truly these days can have a real career, continue to have a real career. You were an amazing example of this, working at Brafton, keep getting promoted. You got promoted to, CMO, the top marketing role that you could have while you were working there, while we were in Bolivia, while you had been traveling for years. So it's not true, but it's just such a different mentality than used to be true. If you look back even 10 years ago, before the internet was what it is today, before remote jobs, have become what they are today, it was much less known back then, but I think it's still a real belief that it's just like, you can't have both, and you absolutely can. And we are proof of that. We have so many, of our travel friends and clients and people, beach commuters that are proof of that. But what was your experience with this?
Because I was already kind of established at the company and moving my way up, I didn't really run into this hurdle too much. It was all secondhand for me. So people would mention things like that about their own concerns about going remote and I don't want to give up the chance of people are not going to, they're going to think that if I'm not on the ground present in the office and somebody else is, they're going to get the promotion. I'm not going to get the promotion. So most of it was just, I would hear, secondhand about other people. But for me, like you said, that was absolutely not the case. I just kept moving up and up and up until I did reach the highest level I could reach. It was really, really important for me to know that I was able to do that. And I think that's going to resonate with a lot of the audience, because you don't want to give up your career progression. It's so personal to who you are. And also financially, like, it's important to people to continue making more and more money, obviously. So I think it is a consideration. I don't know how much we want to get into this, but how the company you're working for, if you are working working for a company views remote work. And we could get into this, I don't know, this could be a whole separate podcast.
Yeah. I can add a little just like tidbit to that. That was actually what was on my mind as well too as we were talking about this. And it really depends, like if you're working for another company, if you're a freelancer, if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like those are kind of less relevant, where you can be doing your work wherever you are regardless. And there is no office, there is no other company. Maybe you're just doing your thing as an entrepreneur. But thinking about working for a company, kind of what you were saying, different companies I think have more of a remote focus or not. So for example, when I worked at Pepsi, I worked in the office in our global headquarters in New York for I guess it was about 4 years or so. And then the last 2 years, I actually worked remotely, less traveling so much. I just had moved to a different state, kind of and I was in California instead of New York, but everybody else was
You're down in LA, right?
I was in LA, yeah.
Remote from LA? Yeah.
Exactly. And everyone else was in New York. And I will say it actually was really difficult for me because it was a kind of in-person company. And I had been there a while, so they knew me and they trusted me and they gave me permission to kind of be separate. But I really did sort of and I wasn't planning to stay there long term, so it wasn't important to me. But I felt like maybe it was harder to still be relevant, for people to notice, to get promoted as quickly or do as well, because everybody else was having sort of in-person on-the-go meetings and I was not there. That said, that was important for me in my lifestyle and some of the choices and what I was doing personally at the time. But when it comes to remote work and travel, what I will say is if that's your priority, to find companies that are good with that are okay with that, where other people are doing that too, so you're not the only odd man out and you can still kind of keep getting promoted and seen. And that was a lot. I mean, that was almost 10 years ago now that I did that. So I think the world is very different. More people are fully remote. More people are in the office sometimes, out of the office sometimes. It's not as relevant, but it is an important part of it's absolutely possible to continue to have an amazing, upward trajectory of a career. I can say that word again now. But it may, you may have to find a different company that respects that and allows that. So if that's your priority, you kind of have to work that into it, but it's 10 billion% doable, and it's not a reason that should stop you, but it is a reason for you to find the right company or kind of trend to do that with, is how I would sort of look at that.
Yeah, totally. And we're kind of seeing something to be wary of, is keeping an eye on some of these companies that are remote now, but they're doing a big return to office push, which we're seeing quite a bit. And it's kind of a lot of these companies, you tend to see they're a little bit more old school in the way that they're thinking, and from what I've seen, they tend to be a little bit larger organizations and kind of value that control over your presence a little bit. So it's just worth keeping an eye on when you're investing time into choosing a company. And if you see they're doing big return to office pushes, it means they value that, and that is something that could be a bit of a struggle for you. I fully debunked. We know it. We've seen a ton of our friends moving way up the career ladder, doing very, very well remote. So it is not by any means a pause button to start traveling.
Good one. So with that, I guess right before we hop to number 3, I'll let you kick that one off. But if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, or even if this is your first episode and you're enjoying the information, we would be so grateful if you can, we never know, leave a thumbs up, a star, 5 stars, subscribe, review, leave a little note. I'm just going to name all the things. Everyone listens on different platforms, and it really just depends where you're listening. But if you can, leave us a review, or the 5 stars, the subscribe, whatever that looks like on your platform. It really helps other people find the podcast as well. It's been growing, and it's so fun for us, and we thank you for that. So with that, Jeff, you want to hop to number 3?
This one's near and dear to me because I get it so much. So number 3 on the list, and it's completely unintentional, comes from a place of love, but your friends and your family, they don't want you physically gone from them. So they're used to having you around. They love having you over for dinners, or being able to come over to your house and visit you and do all the things that you do. And you get a little bit of pressure from them to not leave. And they don't usually say don't leave or anything like that. It's just I'm thinking of my mom right now. Hi, Mom. She's like, I miss you so much when you're gone. Is it possible that you can just come back every 2 months? I'm like, no, Mom, it's not going to work that way, And it does. It comes from a great place of love, but it is a pressure when you're going to book a place, because you get a little bit of guilt associated with that. Like you're abandoning the people that you love to go do the thing that you feel like you need to do. And it is a struggle. I still feel it, and I've been doing this for quite a while now. So this one is not a negative thing in any sense, but it's stressful, It makes me a little sad to know that, it's always easier being the person that leaves than it is the person being at home, the person being left. So I get their position. They're like, oh my God, they're leaving. I'm staying here. I'm going to miss this person so bad. I'm doing the same thing. They're going on adventures. So there's a feeling of loss to it. So I get that one quite a bit. Sorry to throw you under the bus there, Mom. I know she listens. Yeah, love you, Mom.
I love it. We'll send him. He's coming home to you soon. He'll come visit. But this is really real. I have a couple thoughts with this of why you actually might see your family more in some situations, which I'll come to afterwards. But in terms of leaving, I know, for myself, and I have a lot of clients actually who have had this, and I've talked through where some people might have sick or aging parents, or like you said, there's like some people are just really family oriented, and like maybe you live in the same neighborhood as your brother and your niece and nephews and your sister and your parents, and you all get together every Sunday for family dinner. This is not everyone's life, but a lot of people, do have that, and you're the one leaving, and you're breaking up the family and the traditions, and you don't see them all the time. And so it is hard, right? It is hard for family. And I'm like, selfishly, I'm so grateful that my family stays in one place, because every time I come home, I'm like, great, you're all here. I get to see you.
They're all in the same place? That's great.
If I came home and everyone was gone, I'd be really sad. So thank you guys for all staying. But it is very real, and I think it just comes to a choice of, it was the same as like, did you want to leave for college? Do you want to leave to go explore somewhere else? It's like you have to kind of leave the nest sometimes, and I think it just becomes a matter of like, is travel worth it to you? Is exploring the world and seeing it worth it to leave some of that for a little bit? And it is really hard, but I think it's worth it to go out and see the world and experience the world, and you can always go home. And with that said, the other thing I do want to add to it, and this is, so if you're the person who lives down the street from your family and sees them all the time, we just covered that. But for a while I lived, so even in the States, my family is in Atlanta and Georgia, and I went to college in Michigan. I lived in New York. I lived in California. So I was always, a flight away regardless. And since I started my digital nomad life and have started traveling, I actually spend way more time with my family now as a nomad traveling the world than I ever did when I lived, in the States still, but had a corporate job with only 2 weeks of vacation, living in a different state. I might see them for the holidays. I might come home for, a special event or a weekend here or there. They might come to me for, a weekend here or there, but maybe I'd see them 10 or 12 days, like max throughout the year. And now a lot of times, if I'm just home for like 3 weeks or something, I'll sometimes go stay with my parents for, that amount of time. And I'm like, you get me for a long time, and I get you day in and day out for breakfast and lunch and dinner and just in and out. And I've seen my parents so much more and spent so much more time with them, and my brother, my niece and nephew, since I became a digital nomad versus just living in a different state within that same country. So any other thoughts on either of those things?
Yeah, when you're living at home, you think time is infinite, so you just kind of waste it. You don't really, you really don't think, oh, I really need to visit these people, because at some point you're not going to have that opportunity anymore. Yeah. So you just implicitly think everybody's going to live forever and you've got all the time in the world, so you just don't visit as much. But when you're coming home from being a digital nomad, that time is finite, and you treat it that way, So I do the same thing. I'll visit all my family as much as possible and compress it into that short amount of time that I'm home. Yeah. And you might get more out of me in 1 month than you would get out of 12 months. And that's 100%. 100% true. 100% true. It makes coming home more exciting when you're not there as often, because you just get, you get an opportunity like to catch up and talk about all the cool things that you did and everything everybody else is up to. It's like everything is kind of new again, You get new, fresh eyes coming home and seeing your family again.
100%.
So that's a really good point. I love that aspect of coming home. I really, really do.
You almost like you get it all in. No matter how much time you have, you get in as much time as you would if you didn't if you said if you were there for 12 months. And because even my brother lives maybe 10 minutes from my parents. And when I'm home, I feel like I see them as much in 3 weeks or a month as my brother might see them all year, just kind of coming over maybe once a week or whatever that looks like. Yeah. And also it gives you the freedom. I've talked a lot with some beach commuters lately so it's a little bit different. We're talking about family, like in your home, but a lot of people have family, maybe extended family or parents who live in another country or in another state, or they're sick and they, need a caretaker. And being a digital nomad, we talk, you might have it in your head, it means flying to a beach somewhere and living in some tropical destination or a city or wherever, but it actually means you could work from home next to a sick parent for a month if you needed to, or if they have a surgery, you could fly somewhere to be with them in a way that you couldn't if you just have a job where you have to be in one place. So there's also a lot of benefits like that we don't talk as much about, but are really important. Or even if like your family is retired and they go on a vacation, you're like, yeah, I'll pop along and I can hang out and I'll just work from here while you're doing whatever. So there's a lot of ways you can spend more time with people. So yeah.
I'm just jotting down underestimated or unexpected benefits of becoming a digital nomad, because you just sparked a whole bunch of stuff.
Good.
I think we
Maybe
need to
that'll
talk
be
about that.
one of the next episodes we do soon.
Yeah, because that is a huge one. Yeah, you need to go stay with a family member for a month.
Yeah.
So what? Like it's not the beach this time, but now you've got an opportunity to do the things you would never be able to do that.
Yeah.
You have to take a month off of work, go on sabbatical, go help a family member. You've got total freedom to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Who's got the next one here?
Number 4 is that a lot of people just don't understand the concept of a digital nomad, what it is, what you do. And so I guess these people will try to stop you because it's just one of those unknown things, and the unknown scares people. I think this is when will you kind of chime in on your thoughts, Jeff, and I'll add in, because I feel like you had a lot to say on this one.
Yeah, this one's hilarious because every time I talk to somebody about it that doesn't really know it, it's not friends or like immediate friends or family, they think that I'm on vacation. They immediately just start hearing and thinking beach. Like you're going to a beach, you're going to go party, you're just going to screw around for a while, and have no idea that you're just working a normal life. You're just in a different country. So it's just like it's a weird concept to people, and especially the people that have zero familiarity with it whatsoever. Like sometimes you run into people that they don't get it. They've never heard of it. Like they may have worked like some hands-on job somewhere, and they just have no concept of what it is. It's hilarious because you have to talk them through it, and you see them get confused, and they're just like, I don't get it. So What are you doing?
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you said, it's just people don't understand. And it ties into a lot of them where it's like, you couldn't have a career. You couldn't do anything. You're just going to go live on a beach for 2 years. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Why you're doing it? You just couldn't possibly. Yeah, people just don't even understand what it is or what you can be doing. And so we'll try to stop you from lack of understanding.
That's also true of employers too. That
yes.
one's a tough one.
Yeah,
because you'll
maybe
explain,
even more so.
Yeah, probably even more so. I had to explain it to my old boss. I was like, hey, I want to go to Medellin for a month. He's like, and you going to work down there? I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going to work down there. And you kind of have to walk them through it. And you have to say, here's the hours that I'm going to work. Here's my availability. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Here's my availability. Here's all that kind of stuff that proves that I am actually in an office away from an office. It's just kind of a confusing concept for people.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I guess if other people don't understand it in your life, you're like, all right, whatever. And people, I think, still don't really understand what I do or that I'm really working in these places because they just see on Instagram like, oh, I'm just traveling. I'm doing all these cool things. But I think to your point, employers are probably the biggest part of this, which is like you really saying, if you say, I'm going to go to this country for a month, they think like, yeah, she's just going to go or explore, do nothing, not work, not get anything done. So I think it does take some education to say like, look, I'm in this place, yes, but I'm still going to be working, Monday through Friday or this time to that time, the same as I normally am. I'm going to have Wi-Fi. I'm going to be connected in these ways. You can reach me anytime. You can still call me. All of those things. And like, it's hard because, what most people share on Instagram is like, here's the cool, like, hike I'm doing. Here's this cool beach. Here's this cool place I'm working from. But you're still doing all the same things. So it does take some education. And I think a lot of people don't believe it until, employers included, until they experience you, like, being equally productive and delivering just as much value while you're gone than as if you weren't.
Yeah, they got to see a month of it in action to go, oh, okay. This is the same thing as them working at home. It's basically the same exact concept.
Exactly. Yeah. But we get it. It feels like you're just checked out on vacation and you don't want to do your job anymore. Especially
if you're going somewhere cool and exotic and you tell people about it. Like I stopped telling my employees. They're like, where are you going? I'm like, let's just get into work stuff because I don't want to tell them I'm on it working from like a beach area or somewhere exotic because they'll misunderstand it. People could get jealous of it. Well, why am I at home in Michigan in December when he gets to be on a beach somewhere during the winter? Yeah, so it's a little tricky, and it takes a little bit of education to get to.
Yeah.
Number 5 is people have the expectation that you're pausing your life expectations, like in the realm of building a family, having kids, that kind of thing. And yeah, I think I had that early on in it. My family's like, you can have kids, you can have family, you're going to do the whole thing. All the especially the Northern American, like we got a Northern American bias. That's a huge expectation. You got, buy your house, get the lawn, go into the suburbs, have your 2 kids, have your dog, whatever it is. And that's like, it's like expectation that comes from, a lot of times from parents, grandparents, that kind of thing. They want to, where's that kid? I want to see that kid. Like, I need proof. I want proof that you're developing socially. And they gave up on me. I'm like, you get a dog. You can hang out with my dog. And I'd say it was maybe like 5-6 years ago or something. They just accepted it. They're like, okay, he's not in I'm never going to grow up syndrome. He just doesn't want to do this.
Right.
And that's like fully okay at this point for me. But I did feel it, not a ton of pressure. Love to hear what you get on your end, because I'm sure you felt something similar, or maybe even stronger.
Yeah, totally. So with this one, I think that a lot of the misconceptions that people have in nomad life is like, you can't meet a partner while you're traveling. You can't have kids while you're traveling. You can't build a life and a family while you're traveling. And so what a lot of people would tell me, even like 1 year into it, 2 years into it, 3 years into it, maybe since like 4, 5, 6, 7 plus, they're like, all right, we get that this is just your lifestyle at this point if you want it to be, and you can do whatever. But in the first years, everyone was like, oh, that sounds so much fun that you're doing that, but like, when are you going to come home and start to, have kids and buy a house and build a family? I owned a home. I'd like rented it out back home, and I was engaged before, and I, it's like whatever. But for me, I think it was re-educating people of like, why do I have to, I do still, desire, I want kids and all of that, but like I've seen so many families traveling as nomads, or maybe you slow down and I might want to live in a couple of different locations. But I think for me, it's been helping people to like, or try to educate people of like, I can still have those things and be a digital nomad, I guess is the way I will say it. But the thing that people would try to, everyone would just keep saying like, oh, like that's cute, when are you going to come home and build your life?
So condescending.
Is like the phrase. That. Yes, that's.
Ooh, I just went into red mode.
Yeah, and it's hard, and like I think you have to be really confident in yourself and your choices and your lifestyle. So when people say that to me, I was like, okay, that's great. I don't care if they think that. That's I'd be like, oh. I don't. I can keep traveling and do this. Or like if and when I'm ready to have kids, then if I want to go home, I will. Or if I want to not come home, I won't. But like you really, truly don't have to choose between those things anymore. But a lot of people have this sort of condescending, and it's not purposefully condescending. I would say most people like really, truly just didn't understand what I was doing, or that you could have kids and be on the move or live in different locations and not just like come home and be planted in the suburbs or with the, fence and, dog and whatever it is. So anyway, all of that to say, it's something you might experience if you're desiring to be a digital nomad. Maybe you already have kids. We actually have a lot of beach commuters who do have kids, and we've been meaning to do an episode on that for a while. But a lot of people, you might have young kids and then choose to travel, and people will think you are insane because how dare you take your kids out of a traditional school system and you're in friendships and community. And there's different ways, and sure, there's pros and cons to every aspect of life, including what we're doing, with or without kids, but it's possible. There's a lot of people doing it. There's new resources popping up of world schooling and different communities that have like ways for kids to gather. World schooling is a real thing. And there's so much education for kids. So it's different. It's absolutely very different. And I think people don't understand what is different. So anyway, I think that's a huge thing that people encounter, pressure of like your friends and family might, think you need to come home if that's what you want or what you already have and you're crazy for leaving it. But it's very doable if you want to. But also as a nomad, like you have the choice. So if I was like, all right, I'm ready to have a child now and I want to be home for the first year, like I have the freedom to do that. If I want to spend a year in a country that has, amazing childcare or like it's just easier for me, like I could do that. You can be anywhere you want. And I think that's the beauty of it, but it really freaks a lot of people out.
We met a ton of people that have met on the road traveling and they've got married and started family. Like it happens all the time. It happens at the same rate as at home. So it's not like you're abandoning this whole aspect of your potential future life by any means.
No.
You might even find somebody that you connect with even more than you would just in your hometown,
100%.
Based on your shared values and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I was going to add just like one little part to that is about like meeting romantic interests, right? So like you and I are travelers. That is something we love. And I've met so many more people. We both had like amazing partners that we've met traveling, and like you're more likely, if that is you and that's in your blood and you're want to be adventurous and travel, you're more likely to meet someone on the road doing that, sharing your lifestyle. Instead, when I come back home and I'm like, nobody wants not nobody, there are definitely people, at home that have that, but it's a small percentage. So it's the same thing of like, if that's the lifestyle that you desire, you'll meet matched people. And we have people, I was in Atlanta this past weekend, and there's two Wi-Fi tribe travelers. One's from Atlanta, one's from the Netherlands. They met 4 or 5 years ago traveling in like Argentina and Brazil and just got married here last weekend. So all of that to say, it's very possible, it's doable, it doesn't stop you, but people think that it does. Debunked, stamped, done.
Fully debunked, stamped, done.
All of it. So we hope this episode helped you to say, like, if you're thinking about starting this life, or maybe you're already a year or two into this life even, because people really had a lot of these things to say until it was years in and finally understood it. But hopefully this helped you to sort of say, like, you can have things to say back to your friends and family and the people who love you and care about you, but all the reasons why this is sustainable in many ways and all the fears that they have, you can help kind of speak against them after listening to this episode. So any other last thoughts from you, Jeff?
No, you get any tough conversations, write us in and we'll give you a few talking points. We've had them all.
Yeah, let us know. Feel free to let us write in or comment on anything else people have told to you as you're thinking about this. It's so fun to hear. And if you have any other topics, write us in hello@beachcommute.com. We love to do the topics that you guys really ask about. We do those often. So yeah.
And keep giving us reviews, please. It helps. It really does help.
It does.
Real quick.
It helps us grow.
5 seconds.
Yeah, take your phone, open it now, and just give the little subscribe stars. And with that, we will be back next week.
We'll see you next week.